All righty. Hi, everybody. It's spring, right? So this is our sort of getting there. This is our second History Matters program this spring. I just want to give you a heads up on what is coming up next. I think. There we go. So here is our March 20th program. We have one more program this spring that is Monday, April 17th at 7 p.m. Again, we're going to try and do it hybrid. There is a new book that's just been published by David Sadowski, which is on the North Shoreline. So he will be here in person with books to sell as well. And we'll also have it on Zoom. We are recording tonight, and we have gotten permission from David to record in April as well. So if you happen to miss it, as long as you sign up, you will always get a recording link, as long as we're given permission to record. So always sign up, even if you don't think you may be able to attend, we'll be able to get that link out to you so you can watch the video at your convenience. Oops, one more back. And I just want to say that these are put on by the Libertyville Historical Society, which is an all-volunteer donation-based society. So we do encourage you, if you enjoy these programs and Libertyville history, to either donate or become a member. And if you have any questions about that, you can talk to Lori, who's at the table. You may have already spoken to her on the way in. I'm sure she'll grab you on the way out. So we appreciate that very much. All right, I'm going to switch the program over to Dale's presentation. And let me bring this up here. Just make sure that we can see it in the back. Right. Lori, have you seen that on Zoom? Great. Okay, so we have someone running the Zoom on the back. I should say that we are in webinar mode. So for those of you on Zoom, Dale will not be taking questions during the presentation. If you would like to put the questions into the chat or the Q&A, we will address them at the end. Or if you're having any issues, please do chat, and we have somebody monitoring the chat. But we will take the questions at the end. I forgot to ask Dale for a bio, but I've known him for most of my life, I would guess. I know most of the people in the room. So if you don't know, this is Dale Eggert. He's a retired teacher from Libertyville High School. He is the current head wrestling coach. He is also the author of this big book that's in the back on LHS history. He wrote a lot of articles during the LHS 100th celebration. Oh, good. Lori is holding our Vanna, is holding it up in the back of the room. I should say the book, we do have copies at the library. There are also still some copies for sale. So if you're interested in Dale's book, you can talk to either me or Dale, and we would get you a copy. Anything else you'd like me to say about you, Dale? No? Okay. I'm going to turn that over to Dale. Let me just do one other thing so that you can actually forward the program. Let's see if it goes forward. Okay, you're good. So if you use the arrow keys, you should be able to move through. Okay. Are we on the, sorry. Working out all the little details, or you can also just click that right there. Okay, see if that works. Awesome. That'll work. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. Thanks everybody for coming. This is actually my fourth presentation that I've had. It all started in 2018 during the centennial celebration year at Libertyville High School. As Jenny said, I was writing a lot of articles for the Daily Herald, and then when the centennial year was finished, I got the bug to write a book. And then from the book, this is like I said, the fourth presentation that I've had. There is a feature story on Title IX, but this is going to go a lot deeper than the feature story in the book. So we're going to talk about what briefly, because there wasn't much in the way of women's athletics at Libertyville High School before Title IX was passed. But I was going to be a junior in high school the first year that Title IX was passed, and I can tell you there were some major changes, and it didn't go from 0 to 60 right away, but it went pretty quick. And within a couple of years, girls' sports looked exactly the same as boys' sports. There's a lot to Title IX, but the one that affected me, the one I know the most about, was obviously athletics. So if you ask me any other questions about what was in the Title IX package, I wouldn't be able to tell you. All right. So June 23rd, 1972, last summer, they had the 50th anniversary. So pre-Title IX at Libertyville High School, they started sports for girls right away. It just wasn't interscholastic. It was just basically class versus class. The seniors would play the sophomores, and while the freshmen were going to play the juniors, and it was basketball only. And this one hit my attention real quick because the lady in the front row, far right, Ethel Titus, became Ethel Hodgins. And if you grew up in Libertyville and you're at my age or older, you might know Ethel Hodgins as she was my fourth grade teacher in 1966 at Central School. The Girls Athletic Association started pretty quick. It was a group of high school girls planning their activities. They didn't have too many sports right away until this lady in the center on the right picture, Alexandra Nickel, came to Libertyville High School, and she started 4 sports in her 2 years that she was there. So they were up to 6 by the time she had left. Here's a couple. Aerial tennis is what they called it. We call it badminton. That was a big one. They played some soccer among, basketball, as I said, was number 1 amongst the other 6 sports. In 1928, there was a local merchant that decided to award the outstanding male and female athlete. At the time, males were the only ones playing interscholastic athletics, but he was wise enough to know that we should be honoring the females as well. And on the left, we have the 1928 Newsom Award winner for the girls, Irma Lyon. And then 29 years later, the lady on the right, Nancy Dietz, she was her daughter, the first mother-daughter Newsom combination that I know of. Dorothy Weir was the one standout that we had. It was hard to really tell who the top girl athletes were through the years because they didn't say much about them because they weren't competing interscholastically. Dorothy Weir was the GAA president. She competed in every sport that they had, but that was really about it. But as I was researching for the book, I came across a number of independent register articles written by, many of you know, Ralph Giss, and he kept talking about this lady's career in the javelin. She won 11 national titles from 1939 to 1949. She would have been in the Olympics. It would have qualified her for the Olympics in 40 and 44 had they had them. They canceled them due to the war. But in 1948, she was an Olympian. And in 3 events, actually, the shot, discus, and javelin, the last USA men or women weight thrower that qualified for the Olympics in all 3 events, and she got 4th. She missed it by, I think, 6 inches from a bronze medal. Bowling was the one sport. This lady, I'm trying to think of her name, Baird. No, I'm not sure. I should have. Maybe it's on here. But anyway, she came as a PE teacher, and she got them involved. And she was like all PE teachers. She was involved with the GAA competitions. But the GAA sponsored a bowling championship, a state bowling championship, which Libertyville won in 50 and 57. And then you can see the lady getting ready to bowl in front of her 1954 teammates. Marlene McCall finished 2nd in the state tournament. The first girls interscholastic competition was not official. Gretchen Hausman, a PE teacher that was at Libertyville for 8 years, knew the coach at Deerfield, a PE teacher at Deerfield, and they go, "We got some girls that like to play. We're playing after school, and they're pretty good. We'd like to take you on." Deerfield said, "Yep." So Gretchen got him in a car, took him over to Deerfield. That was our first interscholastic competition. And she said the administration does not know to this day. Well, if they're on this program, they know now, but guess it's okay. But those are the 3 ladies that played. The one in center left is Judy Zetterberg, now Judy Pearson, my next door neighbor, spent a career as a PE teacher. And then we did have a team. It was approved by the administration the following year. They had a couple of matches. Coach Hausman, 2nd row, 2nd from the left, was the one that ran the team. Obviously, she had a lot to do with our girls getting started before Title IX was passed. I have a gymnastics club that, as you can see, was very popular, even though they didn't compete until the mid-70s. They didn't start right away on Title IX, but they kept having the club, and then eventually they worked into some competitions. Volleyball was another sport that Gretchen Hausman got them playing pre-Title IX, 1971. Their first match is on the right. Janet Widener, the 1971 Newsom Award winner, is getting ready to block the Glenbrook North girls spike. Then Okay, 1972, my classmate Diane Miller, who just got inducted in the Libertyville High School Athletic Hall of Fame. She was a really good golfer, had the third best score of any of the boys, could have been on the varsity team as a sophomore girl. And the school said, well, I don't think girls can be on boys' teams. So she took it to the IHSA, and their official ruling was, we're not ready to have girls beat boys in anything, not even non-contact activities. So she was not able to play. The following year, 1973, her junior year, she was able to play, but they only had a couple matches. They had no state tournament for the next 2 years. That's her in the center. That picture appeared on the University of Illinois football program in her junior year when she won the regional title to qualify for nationals, and then she spent a career as a golf instructor. Timeline passed. Here are a number of sports. All these ladies right here, they're classmates. The 1973 ladies are here. That was one of many sports. Gymnastics. I said they didn't have too many meets, but they did get started and a lot of girls because they already had that club. Basketball also in 73. Got a lot of really good athletes in that group that when we started having state competitions, they were quite involved. Swimming in 1973, though, that's night. Oh, let me go back. I will go slower. Okay. I think let me back up. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so we want to see the basketball. Yeah, I see that. I'll say, tell me when to go. All right, so here's wrong way. They're swimming, and that's actually, believe it or not, the 1973 team did not make it into the yearbook. I'm sure the yearbook editor caught some flack on that one. So here's a 1974 team. Terry McGlone, a 1975 grad, got our first championship. And then softball, didn't get the names on that. We kind of see a little bit in the picture. But Sue Garcia was a pitcher on this 5-0 club, and she wound up being a longtime softball coach at the College of Lake County. Yeah. Track was lucky because when they started in 1973, they had a state tournament right away, and Libertyville did quite well. They won the sectional the first 3 years that they were in competition. And you got some people that in their first meet had some championships. Kim Kroll, Sue Kemmer, Sue Fitzpatrick, of course, 73 grad. In 1973, our girls took 5th in the state in the very first state tournament. It was the only state tournament that the IHSA sponsored in 1973. And on the left, we have the state champions in the mile relay. And then on the right, Pam Cronin wound up being all state in 2 events. The mile relay state championship plus Pam Cronin got us to 5th, and she's getting the heroes welcome after her run. And I did write, we didn't get a picture of them, but below it's got some our tennis doubles team state qualifier. I know Gloria Westfall and Belinda Marshall. I think those are the 73ers from that picture. Believe it or not, when I said things didn't go from 0 to 60 right away, when they passed the law, our girls did not have uniforms for the first 2 years. So what they would do, they would wear their gym suits. If in track, it didn't matter, you just wear your gym suit. In basketball, they would put pennies over their gym suit. That's what they went with. That changed in 2 years, as you'll see. So by 1975, that's when we had uniforms and full schedules. Our volleyball, the fall of 1974, that was our first team other than track that competed in the state tournament. They won the sectional, 1 match away from going to state. And then basketball, as you can see, Jean Yankst in the middle, and then Sue Kemmer on the right in her track uniform. Golf in fall of 1975 in their first state tournament, Libertyville had some great success. They wound up taking 5th. And then the girl on the right is Pam Miller, was a senior that year. And she placed third in the state and then went on to a Hall of Fame career at Brigham Young University on their golf team, and then played 4 years in the LPGA, and then spent a career as a golf teaching pro. Here's our first swimming state qualifiers when that began in the fall of 1970, actually 75. So I said 76. I don't know if it was a winter or a fall sport, so it could have been fall of 75. Now, like I said, Gretchen Hausman was the spearhead of Libertyville's efforts before Title IX. We had several coaches after that, and they all participated and got involved. But we got off the ground very quickly. And as Gretchen is saying in her thoughts here, she goes, the fact that they had been having some competition before Title IX was ever passed is why we got off to such a great start. And I'm going to prove that in a slide or two. Here are the other Title IX coaches. When I say Title IX coaches, they were the PE teachers that took sports when Title IX was passed. Take some very interested and encouraging administrators to pull off starting a sports program. And you got Bob Tunnicliffe was the athletic director on the left. Claire Stevens was the girls sports coordinator on the right, in charge of all the girls schedules. And then you need a good superintendent because he's in charge of it all. Walter Johnson, he was such a great sports buff that they named the athletic campus, I guess you'd say, the athletic fields after him, the Walter R. Johnson Sports Complex. Now, to prove how successful our girls were once we started post-Title IX competition, we had something called the North Suburban Conference All Sports Award. They started in 1970 for the first 4 years. Barrington won it every year. Then Libertyville won one in 1974, and then we kind of bounced around with Barrington and Lake Forest. That is until 1979. Our conference made a really big mistake. They started letting girls in deciding who was the All Sports Award champion. And once our girls got involved, Libertyville won 10 of the next 11. And I think you can see the one that really struck me was at the bottom writing where it says in 1983, we won it going away, and we only had one co-championship for the boys, but the girls won 8 of the 9 titles and got second in the other sport, and it was a runaway. By 1990, they said, okay, this is getting kind of boring, and our gym was full of these yellow banners. They finally decided to stop the sports award. Now all the coaches are figuring out who won, but no more banners being given out at that point. All right, so I had initially put this presentation on Vintage Libertyville Facebook site, and I wanted all the pre-Title IX Girls Newsome Award winners to, be recognized. I can't speak on too many of them. I don't know what their skills were. Did they do any sports after high school? Can't really say. The girl on the left, we already talked about her. Irma Lyon was our first Newsome Award winner. I'll go slow, let you catch the names on these. The girl on the far right, we talked about her, Dorothy Weir, the Olympian. And what I didn't say about Dorothy Weir is that her off season from track, when she wasn't doing track, she was like a state and national caliber swimmer. So she's competing in all these competitions, keeping her in shape. I guess it wouldn't really seem to make sense for a weight thrower to be swimming. Really, she should be lifting weights, but she did, and it obviously worked out for her. And then the woman in the second to the right is Ruth Small. Eventually, Ruth Felgar spent many years. She was my neighbor. She spent many years as the secretary at Libertyville High School. The lady on the left, Edith Nicholas, she is the uncle of the 1960 boy, Warren Nicholas, Newsome Award winner. I think that is the first aunt-nephew combination of the Newsome Awards, the only, I should say. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. The woman on the right, Hazel Getchell, she married the 1939 Boys Newsome Award winner, Norm Enevold. And she was quite the musician, but apparently she's also quite the athlete as well. And 1946, you got Ruth Huffman, who eventually became Ruth Luce, and her husband was quite the athlete for Libertyville in 1944. The only catch is, if there was any discussion about who the top athlete was in the family, Daryl didn't have much to say because he didn't get the Newsome, Ruth did. They had some very successful Libertyville High School students, as well as athletes. Her grandkids did really well in athletics as well. In 1951, the one lady I know from this is Vita Grum, who became Vita Yark, and she had some really successful Libertyville High School grandkids. And now she has some great grandkids that are now entering Libertyville High School and playing some soccer and basketball. 1955 is Barbara Kazel, who married, it's either Larry or Joe Ray. I'm not sure which one. Both of them were Newsom Award winners. So I guess we can say you have another husband, wife, Newsom Award team. And then Nancy Dietz, I had talked about her. She is a daughter of the 1928 Newsom Award winner. And then on the far right, you got Virginia Heiser, who is now a very interested Libertyville High School athletic grandmother. 1964, you've got my neighbor, Karen Gleason, who a very athletic family. And she didn't get out there with her brothers very much, but when she did, I could tell how athletic she was. And then in 1965, sometimes you have a situation where I'm on the Newsom Award committee now, and occasionally you get a situation where, you know, this person's good at this person's good at this. How do you pick one over the other? So you just pick them both. And that was the first of our, saved a lot of controversy that way. There's my neighbor, Judy Zetterberg, as I talked about in 1970. They had the same discussion, same situation. And I believe Chris Danielson was a volleyball coach at Lake Forest or Mullen. I can't remember which one, but I know she's involved in education. 1972, Gail Gossel had all kinds of brothers and nephews, or brothers and cousins, that were involved in Libertyville High School athletics. I think she was probably dying to get her chance. Then Polly Smith, another 1973. She had post Title IX when she was a senior, except for no state competitions. And then Liz Thompson, again, her only state competition was track when she was on the mile relay state championship team. All right, so what happened since? Well, 127 conference championships, 31 qualified for state, and 14 top 4 state finishes. It kind of makes you wonder what life would have been like if the girls could compete along with the boys all the way through when we started in 1918. Now, my personal opinion, you could disagree, but it would seem to me like volleyball's been the most successful girls sports program. You look at the record, way over, well, they play more games than maybe other sports, but still the winning percentage and number of conference titles, and they've won well over half of the regional titles that they would have competed in over the past 50 years. Now, for a while, Linda Delano was the coach on the left, very successful in her 11 years, 10 conference titles, 10 regional titles, 4 sectional titles. That's hard to top. But the one thing volleyball had struggled with is they'd always go out in the super sectional and never qualify for state. Finally, 2007, fall of 2007, Chris Trezino was the coach when the girls finally got to the state tournament. Kind of a monkey off their back. They kept winning all the way through, but that was quite a breakthrough. And then in 2012, they qualified again, took 4th, and then in 2014, under the direction of head coach Greg Loika in the blue shirt, they wound up taking 2nd in state. And then the player on the right, Morgan O'Brien, 2-time All-State player, went to University of Illinois, was a starter like her 2nd year, and their teams were great. And then she decided U of I doesn't have the major I want. So she switched to University of Texas, another top NCAA program, and had a great season for Texas. I'm going to say the next best sport would be basketball. If you look at their record, they're poised to break the 1,000 mark, and if not in 2 years, certainly in 3 years. And they've got a lot of regional titles, conference titles as well. They've only qualified for state twice. Tom Murphy on the left took his 1983 and 1985 teams to the state tournament. And then here's some really good players if they're before pre-title line. They all got some scholarship money. Terry Rogers on the left. She was an all-state player, got a scholarship to Duke University. Now she is the very successful, winning over 500 games, head girls coach for New Trier. Margaret Bookert was our first 2-time all-state player, now playing for DePaul. And then this past year, Emily Fisher, a senior, took her 2nd all-state finish, and she pretty much had her pick of schools. She chose Maryland, a really good girls program, certainly getting some scholarship money there. Track came out of the blocks really good. pun intended, I guess. They won the first 3 sectional titles. Unfortunately, they haven't won one since, but they've always had some really good individuals. On the left, we talked about Pam Croney recently, or when we started the presentation, who had 5 all-state finishes in between 1973 and 1975. Becky Coleman was a 3-time all-stater who won the 3,200 meter state championship. Jenny Arnold had 3 state champions, 3 all-state finishes in distance runs, and then Lizzie Proctor had 3 pole vault all-state finishes. Golf has had 4 trips to state tournament, which I think is very admirable, but we haven't had many all-state golfers. We had Pam Miller back in 1975, and then the only other all-state golfer we had was Nicole Shackner, who took 5th and then 2nd in 2003 and 2005, and then had a really nice career for the University of Florida. And then on the right, the girls are warming up to play in the 2015 state championship. And they finished 7th, which is our highest golf state finish. Tennis has been quite successful. First year in 1973. On the left, you've got Craig Hunter, who was 12-year head coach. He took his 1983 and 1984 teams to 3rd in the state. The gentleman in the center, Dale Eggert, was a longtime girls assistant coach, but also a very successful boys head coach. And then Jill Galliani was all-state singles. And then the 2 girls on the right took 2nd in state, Sarah Evans and Sarah Griffith. And Sarah Griffith also teamed with Janelle Bowen in 1974 and took 2nd in state. We had a double state championship team with Sarah Anderson and Mary Lee Belier. And then Pam Dirks on the left was a head coach. Craig Hunter probably would have kept going. He's not back on the staff now, but he wanted to watch his own kids in athletics. So he would be, I'm going to say 74 right now, and still coaching. Not head coach, but assistant. And Dale Eggert, again, long-term assistant coach. And on the right, we have Kristen Pachochin, who had 2 all-state finishes in the singles. Softball played 1973. We talked about Linda Delano being a very successful volleyball coach. She was also a very successful softball coach, 5 conference titles in those 11 years. On the right, one of her top players, Mary Tiggs, was 4-year starting catcher for the varsity. And during all her time in high school, she only struck out 1 time, and then went on to a Hall of Fame career for Eastern Illinois University as an outfielder, and then came back and was Libertyville High School head softball coach for 6 years. And then we hit the skids in softball. We didn't win another championship for a good 20 years. And then we got this lady, Alyssa Wisniewski, who was a 4-year starting varsity pitcher for Stevenson. And then when she took the head job and took it for 8 years, you can see the 5 regional titles and 5 conference titles. And since she was a pitcher, you figure her pitchers are going to be pretty good. You got Hannah Harity on the right, who was a 2-time All-Stater and played college ball at University of Dayton. Swimming has had numerous All-Staters, but I would say here's your 3/4 of our Mount Rushmore, I guess you could say. You got Linnea Magnus, who in her 3rd year of state competition, they didn't compete in state right away, but her 3rd year, she got 3rd in the state. And it took until 2013 before Morgan O'Brien was able to get 2nd. So no one got above Linnea Magnus for a good 30 plus years. And then Jennifer Cohen in the middle got 4th twice, along with 2 other all-state finishes. The top girls swimming coach on the left is Greg Herman. He had an 18-year head coaching career, also did the boys. And he wound up taking over the department chair for science. So he got out of the head coaching job and said he just liked to coach the underlevels. That was until he's long since retired from teaching now. But then they talked him into it, head coaching again this year. And they said, we got no one else. We know you know how to do it. Don't tell us you don't. So you're doing it. And he did, and they had a great year. And the girls on the right have had multiple all-state relay finishes. I think they had 2 this year and at least 2 last year. Gymnastics, we had already talked about how they got started, and then they started hitting some state success in the late 80s. Alex Haraldson, she came in for 1 year, her senior year, and won the all-around title, which is quite an honor to be an all-around champion. and then she went to the University of Illinois. Liz Calabresa was a 3-time All-Stater as well as a state champion in 1989, now a Libertyville High School athletic parent. And then on the right, our most recent state champion, Anna Becker, she won the vault title, state title a year ago, and then she won the all-around title, our second all-around champion, along with 3 other all-state finishes this year. Kurt Austin was the longest serving girls gymnastics coach, 27 years. And I think there's a lot of sports where you can coach a long time, but gymnastics, I don't think is one of them, because part of that job is spotting. You see him spotting in the middle picture. I think you're kind of limited. He's a gymnastics judge now, which you can do that. It would be 66, 67 right now. You could probably do that, but I don't know about spotting. And then the girl he's talking to on the floor is Tiffany Rayfiner, one of his all-state gymnasts, who is now Tiffany Owens, the head varsity coach for the girls. On the far right, you have Anne-Marie Chester, who became Anne-Marie Hayes, and she was an all-stater in 1987, became a longtime assistant at Libertyville High School. Cross country has been successful as well, especially in the early 90s when they were amazing, when they took 6 trips to the state. Well, they've taken 6 trips to the state, but 5 of them were from 1989 through 1993. And they placed in the top 5 in 4 of those years, including second in 1990. Harry Carlson, the longest serving head cross country coach. Not only was he a successful coach, but he could get a lot of girls out for the sport. And cross country is great because you don't have to cut. Everyone runs. This picture on the right, it could have been a lot bigger because there was a pack of probably about 30 of them running downhill at the same time. And then we've had some really, again, in the early 90s, our cross country team was one of the best tops in the state, and led by Becky Coleman, who in 1992 won the cross country state champion, our only individual state champion in girls cross country. And then on the right are 2 other 3-time all-staters, Erica Chung and Kelly Carl, both 1994 grads, contributed to our state trophies. Soccer did not start until 1982. The boys were not until like 1978. So just our town in general was not on board with soccer when the LHSA started it. But our GLSA program was so strong that it became pretty obvious we got a lot of people that want to play. And our 10th year as a program, the picture on the left is when they won the 1991 Girls State Championship, led by Coach Andy Bitta, who was a longtime both girls and boys coach. And then the player on the right, Allison Marquardt, she is our only 4-time All-State soccer player, All-American her senior year. But she played volleyball in college at the University of Miami because there were, or Miami, Ohio University, because there was more scholarship money in volleyball. And then we won again, the state title again in 2001 under head coach Scott Shinto, and her top player on the right, Lindsay Moore, 2-time All-State player who went on to play at Marquette. Bowling in 1992 was our first year, and right away we have an all-stater when Karen Newman on the left took 7th in the state, but we haven't had an all-stater since. Probably, you have in the first year, you think you're going to get one every year, but we have taken 6 trips to the state. The girl in the middle is Lindsay Siegel, who was a state qualifier on our first team that went to state in 1996 and our highest placing team. And she is now the 12-year head bowling coach. Picture on the right, our 2022 team that went to state, she's on the back row far left. Water polo had been playing throughout the 90s, but only as a club. IHSA did not sponsor it, but they had all-state for the club girls because there were enough teams that there was some pretty good competition. The IHSA just didn't think they had enough. I don't know what, there was a certain number I think they're looking for. We didn't quite have it, but we did have 2 all-state players, Julia Van Winkle, 1997 grad, and then Andrea Vuchero was a 3-time all-state goalie graduate in 2001. But our team success, we haven't had a whole lot of team success because we're in the same regional every year with Stevenson and Mundelein. Stevenson almost always wins the state, and if they don't, it's probably Mundelein. And so in 2021, the girls on the right finally got to the sectional final, 1 match away from going down state, which is quite an accomplishment because they had to get by Mundelein to do it. And of course, Stevenson took them out in the finals, same with 2022. Competitive cheerleading. Well, our first cheerleading team was in 1929 on the left. The girl in the middle, Mabel Bennett, in 1928, she just started getting out in front of the crowd, started cheering. And so they go, Mabel, we're going to give you a sweater. And then, all right, we'll take it. And kept cheering. She's going to cheer anyway. And then the next year, she talked these two boys into doing it. That was her first cheerleading team in 1929. Before 2006, when the IHSA sponsored competitive cheerleading, there were competitions that our girls could go to, and they did pretty well. But in 2006, when we could start competing, we're getting downstate most years. And in 2011, the picture on the right, that's where they took second in state. Competitive dance, our first pom-pom team, dance team, called Both, was in 1979. And their role was to get a routine going and perform it at halftime of basketball. And then along the way, they started having some competitions they could go to. And our girls always did really well. Finally, in 2013, the IHSA got behind that. And they have a competitive dance, which our girls always do really well, finishing second in state in 2015 and third in state in 2016. Badminton started well before 2017. We didn't get behind badminton until 2017, but the girl in the upper left-hand corner, Catherine Liu, before we had a team, she had some badminton experience, and she entered the IHSA regionals as an independent and qualified for state 3 times. Once we became a team, Kathleen Jin qualified twice for state. And then the girls in the center, the team in the center, is the 2021 team that won the sectional title. Our first badminton championship, and then they actually tied with Buffalo Grove, but then the following year they won it outright. The girl on the right, Alexandra Burns, was a 2-time state qualifier, and she won 5 matches over the course of her 2 trips to state. She is our most success of all. And then lacrosse was a club sport for a long time before the IHSA finally got behind that. A couple of girls on the left are all-state. Kelly Kowalski was an honorable mention, and number 10 in the middle picture, Kayla Baker, was an all-state player. And then the girls on the right, 2011, they got 4th in the state with head coach Dana Brady. And then girls wrestling in Illinois is really big right now, but we still don't have enough girls that are interested in wrestling to start our team. But we have quite a role in Illinois girls wrestling. Okay, so IHSA sponsors it, had started sponsoring it last year. And then this year, they doubled their number of girl competitors, and they expect it's going to double that much more. A lot of teams are getting girls head coaches. I don't know when that's going to happen at Libertyville, but in 1992, Margaret Gates on the left, she was the first girl to ever, well, she came to us when she was a freshman in 1991 and said that she would like to be on a wrestling team. And the quick answer was, girls don't wrestle with guys because, well, I didn't say it, but Diane Miller couldn't play golf against guys 20 years ago. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to fly. She goes, all right. Next year she comes back. She goes, I want to go out for the wrestling team. I go, I don't know. Before I could get that out of my mouth, she goes, just so you know, I've been in contact with the USA Women's Wrestling Legal Council, and they're going to take you to court if you don't let me wrestle. I go, you kind of put a little different there. Let me check it out with the boss. And superintendent calls the school district lawyer, and he goes, she's wrestling because it's a lawsuit. You're not winning. Okay, all right. I'm worried that guys aren't going to want to, I'm not going to have anyone that's going to want to practice with her, but found out pretty quickly guys are standing in line to practice with her. So that wasn't a problem. And then she actually won a match her first year, won a varsity match the second year, didn't start her third year, but won plenty of JV matches. And then the picture on the second from the left, you see she's got a red singlet on. That's not a Libertyville singlet. That was an international competition, freestyle competition it's called, and you have to either be in a red or a blue singlet. And so at the end of the season, actually a couple months at the end of the season, she competed in the USA Women's World Trials and qualified for the world, the worlds, and took second place. So her time spent in Libertyville wrestling, I think, was helpful to her. And then when she left in 1994, in comes this girl, Manny Thompson, who had several cousins that were involved with wrestling. So even though she never really officially wrestled, she knew the sport pretty well. And she wound up being the first Illinois girl that qualified for sectionals. She qualified twice. Boys sectionals, I'm telling you, and 53 wins, all against boys. And that is the presentation. So like I say, wishing 50 more years of success. You can see the fun that these girls are having and how impactful it's been for our girls. Thank you very much, everybody. If we have a question or two, send it at me, or if we got something online.
We have two online. I just want to come up to the mic
Oh, yeah.
so that they can hear me ask the question, but then you can.
Okay.
So one of the questions online is, when was the GAA formed?
It was formed in the first couple of years. Like I showed you that picture of Ethel Hodgins in 1921. I know the next picture of GA was 1922. So it might have been like 1920 to get that inter-class competition off the ground. Yeah.
The other question is Gretchen Hossman still living?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, you can find her on Facebook. She'd be happy to talk. She knows all about this presentation. She's got the book. She can, well, I think I emailed her several times, and that's where I got her quotes on how Libertyville got off to a really good start. If there's no other questions, I turn it over to Jenny.
Any questions in the room? Yeah, I've got a question here.
What is the stance on if there are not equivalent sports for men and women, a woman's ability to play in a men's sport or vice versa?
Let me just repeat the question, Dale, because I'm not sure that the people online can hear. So the question was, what is the stance if there's not an equivalent sport? If girls want to play and there's not an equivalent sport for them, the boys, can they play on the boys' team? Is that the question? And the other way around.
Great question. Okay, so yes, if there was no girls wrestling team, a girl can compete on the boys team. I'm trying to think of another sport that there's out there that would not be comparable, but if there was, the girl could. So that would only make sense that the boys could do that on a girls team, right? But then in the late 70s, the Dixon Girls State Championship bowling team was all boys. So they said, okay, sorry, this might seem sexist, but boys cannot play on girls teams if there's not a comparable team.
That's still the role?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Other questions in the room? Yep, go ahead.
With all the boys and girls sports they have now, how can you even build a team? There's like so many choices that, you know.
Dale, come back.
Yeah.
So the question was, with all the
sports now that.
all the teams and sports, how are there enough kids to fill them?
You know, we're not having a problem at all at Libertyville High School. I can't think of a team that doesn't have enough. I don't think of any coach that goes, they just don't have enough to start the year. But I think Libertyville, like any school, is going to take a look at the interest. And there was like, okay, soccer. We don't have a soccer team. We got enough sports in the fall. Well, we've got so many kids that want to play it. Okay, we'll start one. Same with lacrosse. Started the same way. Started as a club, became a team. But I can see where some smaller schools would have trouble. In fact, what some of the smaller schools are doing is they are co-oping with teams that don't have enough kids. They go, in fact, if we do get some girls out next year for wrestling, we're going to co-op with Vernon Hills because they have a few girls out, and we can make a team that way. But you got to be creative. But if there's an interest, yeah, you do it.
That's also the case for like fencing at Libertyville and Vernon Hills have a fencing club, but they're combined together because of the number of kids. That's probably one of the more recent sports.
And it's not HSA.
Right, it's still club level.
Yes.
Yeah. What about my question regarding not so much people, but facilities? So Libertyville's landlocked. How's that going?
Well, they aren't landlocked because they'll send them over to Canterbury for lacrosse, and there's the old nursery for soccer, and they got a lot of places they can send them. The problem is in the winter time, and I think the girls would probably argue that there might not be enough sports for them in the winter. There's gymnastics and basketball, and that's really it. The boys have swimming and wrestling and basketball. So I think you could say the boys have a little bit more of an advantage in the winter, but I don't know how many sports we could tolerate in the winter based on gym space.
Hockey.
We have a club hockey team. I don't think that's IHSA sponsored. I don't think they want it to be because of the cost and the late hours. If anyone's in club hockey, they're practicing 11 o'clock at night just because that's the only time they can get in there.
I lived in Connecticut for years and years, and the 4-year-olds 5 a.m.
Oh.
I'm a hockey mom, so yeah,
Okay, was it the same thing in Wisconsin?
6 a.m. Yeah.
Okay, but was it Wisconsin State Association sponsored as a club?
It's all state associated, but there are a lot of schools that they don't have enough kids. They do co-op.
Yeah, yeah.
Same with gymnastics, swimming. I live in Madison, which is 250,000 people, and
Yeah.
some of the high schools still, the smaller high schools still have to co-op
Yeah.
for some gymnastics, swimming, not wrestling. I think wrestling there's no.
Maybe not in Madison,
big
but
enough.
I'm sure there's some small schools in Wisconsin, but Libertyville with hockey has offered it since the 80s. And you would think that it, there's other people doing it. HSA is eventually going to jump on board, but there has not been a sniff of that since.
Interesting.
Are there any other questions online, Lori? Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more. We can repeat it, but does Illinois have a woman who in wrestling is the equivalent of Dan Gable?
The question was, does Illinois have a woman in wrestling who's the equivalent of Dan Gable?
Not yet, but there's one coming. Okay, so Blades, I'm trying to think, Kennedy Blades is her name. She was, as a 17-year-old, she got second in Olympic trials to a girl that went on to medal. And she just did not, she actually was the boys state champion in 8th grade in the IKWF state champion. So you knew she'd be pretty good. She did go out to this high-powered school in Pennsylvania called Wyoming Seminary. She would have eaten up Illinois competition. What was really interesting, okay, so I had said that Mandy Thompson was the first girls sectional qualifier in Illinois. Then along about, I would say 2006, they had a girls qualified for the boys state. Then I'd say about 5 years ago, they had a girl win 2 matches and finish 1 match away from all state for the boys. And then this year, major breakthrough, a girl from Bremen and took 3rd in the state. She lost 1 close match in the semis and beat 4 other boys. But I think the question is more talking about among girls, and I think Kennedy Blades is the closest.
All right, I think we grabbed all of the online questions and the in-person questions. So again, we really appreciate both the in-person and Zoom people on our first hybrid, and be interested to hear from those of you who are online how the experience went. I think in person, everyone enjoyed it. For those of you who did register, in a day or so, I'll get the link out to you. So if you want to go through this and read all the names and all of that, you'll have a link to the video on our YouTube channel, as well as you'll be able to see all the other things on the Libertyville Historical Society YouTube channel as well. We've been recording since 2020, 2021. So I appreciate again everybody coming. We hope to see you in April. If you haven't registered yet, you can register online, stop up at the welcome desk or give the library a call and get signed up for our April program. Once again, thanks to Dale and thanks to all of you for coming. Have a great night.